a good segue into the third uh, subject, which is um, about decision making. Because in that moment, um, I did make a decision to be present, and making even that small decision did help with my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Donald Winnicott talked about being a good enough mother,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that, you can make tons of mistakes. I like to include father in there as well, but, being a good enough parent, you can make tons. It's not about being perfect. With decision making, it's not about being perfect and having to find the, the perfect decision. But sometimes just making a decision can feel really empowering. And it's more the act of making the decision than, what it is that you're actually deciding that matters. A good enough decision.
Right. And I also don't want to discriminate people who sometimes make a decision and cannot go through with it. I think there are, I believe in the um, energy or the power of the moment that pushes us forward. Sometimes certain decisions are made to move away from what hurts, and they are kind of, I think they stick more, or moving towards something that might potentially hurt. Those are the more difficult ones. You know what I'm saying? So like
Right.
divorce, or those kind of decisions. It's perfectly okay to stumble and to feel like that you're shaking, and like you need support. It's what we're talking about here is, in the moment, making an emotional decision about ourselves, not about the situation that we are in, making a decision about our internal processes.
Yes, absolutely. One thing he says is, this is about deciding to go to the gym. If you go because you feel you have to or you should, it's not a voluntary decision. And the
I
decision,
so
it's important that in order to derive the pleasure from the decision making, that you feel like you're making the decision voluntarily and not because you feel like, oh, well, I should do this, I have to do this, because that just adds stress.
totally. It's like, exactly, it's like having another parent dictating you something, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I call it, in my work with people, I call it the punitive parent,
Yeah.
which it feels like is pretty universal, and it's something that we internalize. And I mean, it's also called the superego, and but
Well, every day, I mean, I read like five articles about how I should live,
mm,
how much weight I should lose, and
mm,
what I need to do to be healthy.
mm,
That's bad enough if we internalize that, and that kind of turns into a internal parent as well. And I found myself saying the other day, there are two ways of staying healthy, doing the healthy thing. There's a way of saying, oh my God, I need to do this to be healthy or whatever. And there's a way to say, it really feels good to do it. And so, I meet so many patients who say, oh my God, I always lived well in my life. I ate well. I never smoked. I did, I worked out. Why did this happen to me? Meaning, why did I get cancer?
mm.
So I think it's almost like I paid my dues, and why is this happening? And whereas some people who are more like, I do it because I like, when they get cancer, because they also do, their attitude is not questioning that. It's about like, how can I continue to live my life the way I like?
Mm.
And that's, I think, a big contrast.
Right.
And that's the thing that I want to evoke in my clients. I don't know exactly how to. I'm working on it, sort of being more self-oriented as opposed to doing it for the sake of having to do it because some higher power says so.
It's such a good point. And we are bombarded
Oh,
by, information about that essentially sends the message that we're not good enough, and that
yeah.
you know, something bad is going to happen if we don't do all of these different things. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of, you know, thinking that we have to do these things. We have to do these things. And it takes all the pleasure out of it. It's never going to be enough.
Exactly. Just full of anxiety. Like there was this hilarious social media post that I saved somewhere. I have to find it, for parents, you know, nowadays. It's about like, you have to do this with your child, you have to do that, and then don't forget the coconut oil. It's so funny. It's like, yeah, like if you don't do the coconut oil, at least it used to be 2 years ago, you're a loser.
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
It's so, I mean, so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then it says, whereas for your parents, it used to be like, did she eat? Then that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
all I cared about.
Well, it's kind of goes back to that good enough parenting, good enough decision making. And for me, I just wrote an article about information overload, and just about the challenges of living with a chronic illness, and dealing with all of the information out there, all of the people that say, this is what you should do, or, you know, this is what will help you. This will help your symptoms. This will stop your illness. This will cure
Slow it
you,
down.
slow it down, reverse. And a lot of well-meaning, well-intentioned people. I mean, of course, there are people that just want to benefit themselves, but I think there are a lot of people that, you know, truly believe that if you do these things, this will really help. And we talked about this a bit, last time, but it's such an important.
But it has so many layers as well. So it will come back again and again. And I think we're touching upon something different this time, in the sense that there's a way to take care of yourself in the way that you feel comforted by, or feel enjoyment from, fulfillment. You get fulfillment from it. I mean, it's like eating a good meal and saying, oh, that really felt good. As opposed to, oh my God, you know, I need to eat my broccoli and juice kale or whatever to stay healthy. And that's a very a different standpoint, you know, and I don't think the benefits are equal.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think I would even go further and say, if you can't find some joy and if you can't really buy into it yourself, you know, then don't do it, you know? So I think that's such an important point.
I read something, it was said by a prominent oncologist. So he was responding to people saying, oh, you need to stay positive, you need to eat this and do that to beat cancer and starve sugars and what have you. And he said, well, first of all, we still don't understand what causes cancer. To begin with, there are so many thousands of different cancers, not one illness we're talking about. There are many illnesses. And second thing is, he says, it's like stepping on a mine. You know, once you step on a mine, it doesn't matter whether you eat broccoli or you don't eat sugar or what, you know, that you're not upset. You're going to have to deal with it like with the same kind of force. And that not getting upset or not crying really is not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. So you need, you know, the bombs, you know, you need the chemo, you need the radiotherapy, you need the operation to really fight back. And if that makes you feel good, those other things, do them as well, because that's good for your quality of life in the long run. You know, if you survive cancer and you want to feel better, or you want to get rid of the toxic effects of the drugs you're taking and all. So we need to really put things in perspective.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it really makes people find fault in themselves when they are diagnosed with any chronic illness. Like, what have I done wrong? What could I have done better? I think what I wanted to say for what we talked about before about engaging the thinking brain, if I may switch gears to that, back at least. I remember that one day I was in the UK and I was feeling devastated because we were in this in this really difficult situation, waiting for our visas to be extended or something like that, where I felt completely powerless. And dealing with the home office at the time made me feel very, very like frustrated and not being able to get any information, not having any contact. And I think that's very similar to dealing with an illness where you don't have control. Okay. What really helps me in that moment, I will never forget this. One day I got some bad news and I was feeling really like very anxious. I had to have supervision. And I was really not in the mood for it. All I wanted to do was just to drink a couple of glasses of wine and go to sleep. And so I had to have supervision. And after my supervisor and I had talked about what's happening, we started to talk about the work I do. And so I had to engage my thinking. After about 10, 15 minutes, I noticed that my internal feeling had completely shifted. And it's really totally by accident. I mean, I started thinking. And then my feeling of the situation hasn't changed, but my internal feeling was much lighter. I felt much more like myself. And you know how you can feel your cortisol going high sometimes, feeling really like, oh, and it was just gone. Almost like after a workout kind of a feeling, very relaxed. And I think what we talked about is so important to realize. Often people think, how will therapy help me when I'm dealing with all these illnesses? Exactly like this, because what we do is really fostering thinking, fostering that space, creating space for the person who's dealing with the chronic illness to start thinking as opposed to reacting to what they're being bombarded with. And I think that's a huge shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a deep self-centeredness when we're just totally lost in anxiety and worry and thought, and it's just internal. And it reminds me of the Plato's cave.
No, I don't remember.
So I love this one, but basically it's about these prisoners that have grown up their entire lives inside of a cave and chained, facing the wall of the cave, and all they see are shadows on the wall of all the things happening behind them. And
okay.
The shadows are that's their reality. That's what the shadows are what they think is, that's all that they think are real. It's everything exists in two dimensions. And Plato said that the true philosopher is able to unshackle themselves from that and get out of the cave to see that there's so much more that exists. And our internal worlds can be caves. It's easy to become trapped in very specific ways of thinking and feeling that when we get out of ourselves, when we start, like your example with your supervisor, or for me, I feel this all the time when I go and work and engage with other people, that beforehand I'm feeling kind of down or stressed or anxious, and then an hour later I feel totally differently. And
because you're engaged in your thinking and the here
yes.
and now. Yeah, it's absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I love this. I love the Plato example. I had not known that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I love that.
What a powerful image.
Yeah.